Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we recognize that your time is valuable, and I do apologize for this afternoon's delay, but some things are unavoidable. All right. Mr. Majorani, you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would call Patrick Miller to stand.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you state you're going to spell your name for the record?
Patrick Miller, Patrickmiller.
Are you employed?
I am
Where are you employed?
with the Michigan Department of State Police.
What is your position there?
Currently, I am assigned to the Major Case Unit,
What is your title?
Detective Trooper Specialist,
Okay. How long have you been employed with the Michigan State Police?
a little over 9 years.
Okay. And at the time of this case, what was your position?
I was assigned to Directed Patrol in the city of Saginaw.
All right. And taking you back to July 14 of 2020, you were employed on that date?
Yes, I was.
And were you on duty on that date?
Yes, I was.
And you were on duty at about 3:30 in the morning?
That is correct.
Okay. And on that time and that date, were you called to an area of Birch Park in the city of Saginaw?
Yes, I was.
And what is Birch Park?
It's an apartment complex in the city of Saginaw. It's located off of Hess Avenue.
And is that in Saginaw County, state of Michigan?
Yes, it is.
Have you ever been called to the Birch Park Apartments in the past?
I have.
How many times?
I can't recall specifically how many times, but it's been numerous.
Okay. What were some of the reasons you've been called there in the past?
I have to object. I'm not sure why that's relevant.
Why is that relevant?
Your Honor, I like to establish it's a high crime area.
And just ask them then.
Okay, I will, Your Honor. Trooper or detective, is the Birch Park Apartments a high crime area?
It is, yes.
And why is that?
Due to the nature of calls that we get dispatched to in that area, we deem it a high crime area.
And on this particular occasion, July 14, 2020, at about 3:30 in the morning, why were you called to those Birch Park Apartments?
Saginaw City Dispatch aired a call of several subjects that were displaying handguns inside the apartment complex.
May I approach with Your Honor?
You may.
Let's let the record reflect that I'm showing the witness what's been previously marked and admitted and stipulated to admission of exhibits 1 and 2. And Trooper, can you just tell us what those are?
The piece of paper, this is the 911 call log from this incident. And the CD would be an audio recording, basically of what is on the call. Excuse me, the call log.
And you've had opportunity to look at and review both of these before testifying today.
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move to publish those exhibits to the jury.
Do you intend to put those on the screen?
I'd like to play the CD for the jury from my computer, and I'd like to pass the paper to the jury
At the same time?
at different times, Your Honor. I'd like to play the CD first.
Okay, and the particular paper, how many pages does it consist of?
It says here 8, Your Honor.
So you're gonna pass 8 pages to the jury to review individually. Why don't you let me look at the exhibit and you play the CD while I'm looking at the exhibit?
Very well, Your Honor.
So you wanna hand me the exhibit? And I guess, Mr. Majorana, in looking at this exhibit, what will be the purpose of them looking at this particular exhibit? They'll have a chance to look at it in the jury room during deliberations. But if you want 14 jurors to look at 18 pages with all these calls on it, we'll be here till next Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. So I guess there's a specific reason why you want the jurors to look at this call log. I don't understand what's on it other than a bunch of calls.
Your Honor, that's fine. The jury can look at it in the jury room.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what's the specific reason you want to look at these 8 pages of calls.
Your Honor, the only reason I'd have them look at it is to establish that those calls were made. They can do that in the jury room. That's fine.
Your Honor, if you would like, I could stipulate that those calls were made. If that makes things go faster.
Well, this has already been admitted as an exhibit by a stipulation, so they can look at it once they get to the jury room. But to pass it to 14 jurors and look at 8 pages of calls, are you trying to show that there are several calls made in this area?
Yes, Your Honor.
I will let exhibits that, but we don't need to show them 8 pages right now, okay?
All right.
It's already been admitted. They'll be able to look at it in the jury room.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
The following are master copies of recordings from Saginaw County 911.
July 14, 2022, 43:02.
Saginaw County 911, where's your emergency?
Yes, please to the police to 3032 Birch.
What's going on there?
I think so. All I see is a man and a lady fighting, slamming her on the ground and everything.
Who's fighting?
The people practice usually. He just keeps going and he was heading to the ground and people.
Okay, is 3032 your address or their address?
Is there any?
Is it just one male, one female?
He's a male and a female.
Okay, can you see what color shirt either of them is wearing?
The girl had
All right, I'm gonna get somebody out there, okay? Do you see any weapons?
no.
Okay, I'm gonna get somebody out there, okay? You're welcome.
July 14, 2022, 44:09. July 14, 2023, 28:50.
Hello. Hi, this is 911. You called reference, a domestic assault going on across the road from your house?
Yes.
I have officers in the area. I was wondering if you still see them out there or know where they went?
Yeah. I don't see nobody out here, but they was just out here.
Okay. All right, I will let my officers know. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
July 14, 2023, 29:33. July
Mr. Major,
14,
can I stop you for a moment?
2020.
And what is the purpose of this being played to the jury right now?
Your Honor, I'd like. Your Honor, the purpose of playing it is so they can hear the jury, the 911 call. The next call is going to indicate there were guns on the area.
Okay. And how many calls do you want them to hear?
I want them to hear all of them. It's the same individual.
How many calls is it?
I believe there's only one more call, Your Honor, to look at the log, but
All right, I'm just trying to get a parameter on where we're headed.
We're almost done, Your Honor.
All right, proceed.
3:30:07.
Saginaw Central Dispatch, how can I help you?
Yes, I just made a order about the thing, and he asked me if they're still out here, but I didn't check, but they is still out here.
Oh, they are still out there?
Yes,
You said 3032 Birch Park?
yes, they are in the parking lot,
They're on the parking lot?
and they got guns,
You said they have guns?
yes,
Are they, can you see the guns right now?
no,
Are they okay, when you see them, were they handguns or long guns?
they was hanging on,
Okay, you said they were handguns?
yes,
About how many are out there right now?
it's like about, I'll say 7,
7?
but, yes, but it's mostly dudes, but it's like 8 girls, and the rest is like 4 dudes.
Okay. Okay, anything else you can tell me about what's going on?
Is that what?
Anything else you can see going on?
Oh, no, I already told the first officer what was going on. And she said she was gonna send officers out there.
Okay, all right then.
July 14, 2023, 31:56.
All right, so detective, you did go to that Birch Park apartment complex.
Yes. we did.
Did you receive a specific address from dispatch?
Just what we would have heard on the call notes or in the call, rather, it was 3032 Birch Park.
Okay. How long did it take you to arrive at the Birch Park apartments after receiving the call?
Approximately 5 minutes.
All right. Did anyone go with you to the Birch Park apartments?
My partner who was in the vehicle with me,
And what's his name?
Sergeant Justin Kemmer.
And what did you do once you got there?
There's a side street to the west of the complex called Robertson Drive, and it's blocked by a fence, but there's a break in the fence. And this street is, it's not lit at all, so it's unlit. And we parked our patrol vehicle at that location, and walked into the complex through a break in the fence.
Why didn't you go and enter the complex through the main entrance?
There was only one way in and one way out of the complex, and based on our experience responding there, if individuals inside the apartment complex see law enforcement, they typically run back into their apartments or run into the woods that kind of outline the apartment complex.
You can approach with Sharon.
You right?
Just let the record reflect that I'm showing the witness what's previously been marked as proposed exhibit 3. You just take a look at that and tell us what it is.
This is a aerial diagram from Google Maps of the Birch Park apartment complex.
Did you create this Google Maps?
Yes,
And it's a depiction of the Birch Park apartments from the sky.
that is correct.
It's a fair and accurate depiction of those Birch Park apartments.
It is, yes.
All right. Are there any markings on that picture?
There's a red line drawn from Robertson Street along the northern part of the apartment complex, excuse me, all the way to where we would have walked on foot.
Do you make those markings?
Yes,
All right. And those markings represent the path you took.
that is correct.
Your Honor, we'd like to move to admit Exhibit 3 and publish to the jury at this time.
Ms. Askew,
No objections.
exhibit 3 will be admitted.
I'll do that on a document, Karen, Judge.
Is the monitor on in front of you, ladies and gentlemen?
So I realize it's a little faint, but right here, is this the markings you made, Detective?
Yes, it is.
And it follows the back of the complex?
Correct.
And there's a marking here. What does that indicate?
That's where the vehicle was located, parked when we approached on foot.
Okay, and in this building, is that 3032?
Correct.
So did you go to that 3032 address?
Eventually, we didn't go to the address, but we would have went to where the vehicle was parked in the parking lot. So
All right.
in a sense, I guess we did.
Okay. How long did it take you to walk from your patrol car to where you got into position?
Maybe a minute, if that. We were trying to be as cautious as we could, approaching on foot and trying not to make a lot of noise.
And what did you see when you got into position?
We saw several subjects standing outside a black SUV parked in the parking lot.
How many people did you see?
There was approximately 4 to 5 individuals standing outside the vehicle.
Was the complex lit?
There are street lights, or in the parking lot, there's big tall lights that illuminate the parking lots.
Was it lit enough that you could see those individuals?
Yes, it was.
Was there a vehicle in that area you saw?
Yes,
And what kind of vehicle was it?
it was a black Ford Escape.
How is that vehicle parked?
It was backed into its parking space, so the front of the vehicle would be facing to the south, and then the rear of the vehicle would be towards the north.
So from your vantage point, what side of this SUV were you seeing?
I was able to see the entire driver's side of the vehicle and then the rear of the vehicle.
Do you know what kind of maker model that SUV was?
It was a Ford Escape, if I recall correctly. It was a 2007.
How long did you observe these individuals in the SUV?
I would say no longer than a minute. It was pretty brief.
And these individuals, where were they standing in relation to that SUV?
There were a couple of subjects that were standing near the front of the vehicle, and then the others were on the driver's side, kind of towards the rear of the vehicle.
And when you saw these individuals standing around that SUV, what were they doing?
Just kind of talking and conversing loudly as we were sitting there watching them.
Could you see the area that was that right rear passenger tire of the SUV?
I could see kind of the back of the vehicle, but I had a view of it to where I could see nobody was going up to it at that time.
And was anybody around that tire at that time?
There was nobody there at that time.
And at that time, when you were viewing this, were you able to identify any of those people?
Well, we could identify if they were male or female, but as far as, seeing or determining who they were now.
Did you see Arthur Woods at that time?
It was later determined that Arthur Woods was present there, yes.
Okay. How did you later determine it was Arthur Woods?
We got his name, his identity, and we ran him through our SNAP database.
Can you just explain for the jury, what is the SNAP database?
It's a tool used by law enforcement. It's an image database. So if we type in someone's name, it provides an SOS photo, or if they've been arrested, an arrestee photo.
And so is Arthur Woods here in the courtroom today?
Yes, he is.
Can you identify him for the jury?
He's seated at the defendant's table in a suit and tie, a white shirt and I think a red tie.
We'd ask for identification, Your Honor.
Record should reflect the identification of the defendant.
Now, Detective, would a diagram help you to explain what occurred next?
It would help.
All right. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
So let the record reflect that I'm showing the witness what's been previously marked as proposed exhibit 4. Can you take a look at that and tell me what that is?
It looks like a picture of an SUV from overhead.
And that's not the actual SUV you saw on that night?
Yeah, it doesn't. It just looks like a 3D diagram of an SUV.
Okay, and that's a fair and accurate descriptive diagram of an SUV view from the top.
Yes, I would say so.
Your Honor, I'd like to move to admit and publish this to the jury, and I'd also ask Detective Miller if he could step back into the document camera. We'd like to make some markings on that diagram.
Ms. Askew,
No objections.
okay. Exhibit 4 will be admitted. Did you also move to admit exhibit 3, Mr. Major?
I did, Your Honor.
I move to exhibit 3, Ms. Askew.
Exhibit 3 being the area photo. No, I don't have any objections to that.
Exhibit 3 and exhibit 4 will both be admitted.
All right. Detective, you could just join me over by the document camera. All right, so Detective, can you mark in the appropriate corner where you and Sergeant Kemmer were located? Just write police. Then I'd like you to indicate where Arthur Woods was seen standing in relation to the SUV when you first observed him. So once you saw Arthur Woods in that position, standing around the SUV, what did you do after that?
When we were able to coordinate with other units in marked patrol vehicles, we requested backup to come and assist us. And they entered through the entry of the Birch Park complex off of Hess Avenue. And when they arrived and pulled in front of the vehicle, then we approached subjects on foot from our location right here.
So Detective, on that diagram, could you mark where the police cars came from? And also mark your approach as well. So as the police cars are coming in, what did you do next?
My partner and I, we approached from this location to the rear of the vehicle. And as we did that, and the police cars were approaching, all of these subjects, the 4 to 5 individuals standing outside the vehicle, became alert and aware of the police coming into the complex and began moving about the vehicle outside of it.
What specifically did you do, if anything?
My partner and I approached the rear of the vehicle and we made contact with Mr. Woods and another individual who was later identified as Kendrell Buford. I started to go towards Mr. Buford and my partner began to go towards Mr. Woods.
Did you or your partner say anything at that time?
We made loud verbal commands to stop, to show us your hands and not to move.
And when you were making those commands, who were you directing them to?
We were directing them towards Mr. Woods and Mr. Buford at the rear of the vehicle.
To Mr. Woods, and why would you make that command?
Given the nature of the call that there were guns involved, we obviously want to make sure that we can see the individual's hands so that we aren't presented with any sort of uncertain danger when we're making contact with them.
Did Arthur Woods, what did Arthur Woods do at that point?
When we began approaching on foot, Mr. Woods then began walking towards the other side of this vehicle and eventually ended up at the rear passenger tire of this car.
So on that diagram with the red marker, could you just draw an arrow indicating Arthur Woods' path of travel and where he ended up? Just mark Arthur 2 there. And then what did you do after that?
I grabbed a hold of Mr. Buford, and my partner eventually grabbed a hold of Mr. Woods. And we obtained consent from both to search them to make sure they didn't have any weapons on them.
Okay. Did you detain any people in that when you did that?
I detained Mr. Buford and my partner detained Mr. Woods.
Was anybody else detained?
There was another subject, Travion Buford, who would have been at the front of the patrol cars. He was detained. And there was Jessica Swain, who was in the driver's seat. She was eventually detained as well.
Did you find any contraband from any of these individuals?
Mr. Buford, Travion Buford, he had a magazine, a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson magazine in his left front pants pocket. And in the immediate vicinity of where Mr. Woods was located, or eventually taken into custody, there was a 32 caliber revolver located on top of the tire.
Was anything else found?
There was also a 40 caliber Smith & Wesson handgun on the driver's seat that Jessica Swain was sitting on.
On that diagram, could you just mark with an X where that revolver, that 32 caliber revolver was found? So is this a fair and accurate depiction of Arthur Wood's movements in relation to the SUV where you saw him?
Yes,
It's a fair and accurate depiction of where that revolver was found in relation to the SUV and Arthur Woods?
yes.
Your Honor, again, we'd like to move to admit and publish the jury.
It's already been admitted. Publishing it as they're looking.
All right.
Okay.
Did you take any photographs of the scene?
Yes, I did.
Approach the witness again, Your Honor.
You may.
And just let the record reflect that I am showing the witness what's previously been marked as proposed exhibits 5, 6, and 7. Take a look at those and tell the jury what they are.
These are photos of the black Ford Escape, which we recovered the 2 firearms from at Birch Park.
So looking at exhibit 4, when is that one?
It would be exhibit 5.
I'm sorry, it would be 5. That's correct.
Exhibit 5 is the rear of the vehicle.
Okay. And you took this photograph?
Yes,
It's a fair and accurate depiction of the SUV you saw where that revolver and that other 40 caliber handgun were found.
that is correct, yes.
We'd move to admit exhibit 5 at this time, Your Honor.
Ms. Askew,
No objections, Your Honor.
exhibit 5 will be admitted.
And then looking at exhibit 6, what is that?
This would be an image of the rear passenger tire on the Ford Escape.
And did you take that photographs as well?
Yes,
And that's a fair and accurate depiction of the tire you saw where the revolver was found that night.
that is correct, yes.
We move to admit exhibit 6, Your Honor.
Who's asking?
I'm not sure why it's relevant, but no objection.
Exhibit 6 will be admitted.
And looking at exhibit 7, what is that one?
Exhibit 7 is the driver seat area of the vehicle, and there's a pistol on the seat. That would be the .40 caliber Smith & Wesson.
And again, you took that photograph,
Yes,
and that's a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw inside that SUV of the .40 caliber handgun.
yes.
We move to admit exhibit 7 as well, Your Honor.
Who's asking?
I would object to this. That weapon wasn't found and is not part of this case. That's actually part of the defendant's case. I'm not quite sure why that would be relevant today to my client. That's not the weapon that was alleged to have been found involving Arthur. So I would object as to its relevance.
Mr. Major Round.
Your Honor, people would submit that it's relevant because it tends to show that the pistol that was found with Mr. Arthur Woods belonged to Arthur Woods and not into any other individuals because that firearm was found with another individual.
Well, with the relevance to the defendant, not the fact that it's relevant to someone else.
It's relevant to the defendant, Your Honor, because it shows that he possessed his own handgun, not someone else.
I'll sustain the objection with regard to exhibit 7.
And with that, Your Honor, I'd like to publish 5 and 6 to the jury.
All right.
So again, Detective, this is the back of the SUV where the handguns were found.
That is correct.
All right. And this is the tire where the revolver was found.
Yes, it is.
Specifically, where on that tire was the revolver found?
It would have been towards the middle top of it, I guess, if you want to say.
And did you see the revolver for yourself?
At one point during this scene, I would have, yes.
And what caliber revolver was it?
32 caliber.
Wish to approach a witness again, Your Honor.
You may.
And the record reflect that I have shown or presented to the witness what's been marked as proposed exhibit 14. Detective, can you identify what that is?
This is what we would have packaged the 32 caliber revolver in seized that night from Mr. Woods. And on the side here is our property label, which has a description of it. And it says it's a 32 caliber 5-shot Smith & Wesson revolver.
And so you put that revolver into that box?
That is correct. And then it would have gotten submitted to the lab. It still has its seal as it was returned from the lab to, I guess, protect any sort of evidence that's inside of it.
And then where has it been up to today?
It has been in our property room at the Tri-City Post.
And you went and got it from the property room of the Tri-City Post?
This morning I did before arriving here at court.
Okay. Has the weapon been made safe for today?
It would have been made safe when we sent it to the lab.
How is that done?
Well, since it's a revolver, we would have removed the cylinder from it, extracted the bullets out of the cylinder, and then packaged it in the box so that the lab can process it.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to admit exhibit 14 and have Sergeant Miller open the box and display the gun to the jury.
take one thing at a time. Any objection to exhibit 14, Ms. Ashley?
My only objection is I would like to actually see it taken out before I, because it could very well be the other weapon.
That goes to my second concern. Trooper, is there any tape on it that says, do not open this box? Because sometimes when they test it for fingerprints, it says, do not open the box.
No, it just says caution, evidence chemically treated, handle with gloves.
Yeah,
So
you don't
it's-
have any gloves, right?
I do not.
That's why I asked that question. How about that?
It can be opened and not handled, just as a visual, if you wanted to do that.
You're comfortable touching the box without gloves?
I'm comfortable with that.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see. So what's inside the box, Trooper?
It's a 32 caliber revolver.
Okay, it would appear to be similar to the one that you received on the day in question.
It is, yes.
And your signature appears on that box as having seized that weapon?
It's actually, would have been entered into property by Sergeant Kimmerer.
Okay, you were present at the time that weapon was seized?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Mr. Majorana, what did you want to do with this exhibit? I'm going to admit it, but what else did you want to do with it at this point in time?
I'd like Detective Miller to display the gun to the jury so they can see it.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Detective. Now, how is that revolver, the Arthur Woods revolver, different from the 40 caliber handgun that was found that night?
The mechanisms of the firearms are completely different. This is a single, well, it's not a single shot, but it's a 5-shot revolver, meaning you have to insert the cartridges into the cylinder, and then the cylinder spins, firing pin hits the bullet, and then it goes bang. The semi-automatic pistol, you have to insert a magazine into the bottom of it, you have to rack it, and then that's how that one functions.
Okay. And talking about that 40 caliber magazine that was found on Travion Buford, is there any way that that could be used with the revolver that was with Arthur Woods?
There's no way.
Why is that?
It's because it's two totally different handguns.
Or is there any way the ammunition, or I should strike that. Was that magazine loaded?
From Travion Buford,
Yes.
I can't recall specifically if it was loaded or not.
If it had been loaded, would any of those bullets in that magazine be able to work in that 32 caliber revolver?
They would not.
Why is that?
It's a different caliber cartridge. So this one is a smaller caliber and the 40 caliber is much larger.
Did you ever make contact with Mr. Woods that night?
Yes, I did.
And what contact did you have with him?
After the firearms were recovered and made safe, we would have conducted an interview with Mr. Woods on scene.
Was Mr. Woods advised of his Miranda rights?
He was, yes,
Did he waive those rights?
he did.
And what, if anything, did he say?
Mr. Woods denied any knowledge of the firearm, any possession of it.
Did he give any explanation for why he was out there that night?
He gave no indication as to why he was out
Turning back to the revolver, did you do anything to determine the revolver's ownership?
there. We would have ran it in lien, which would have given us a return as to the registered owner of the firearm.
And for the jury, what is lien?
It's the law enforcement information network. And it basically encompasses anything from snowmobiles to vehicles, people, their cars. So we just type in serial numbers to different things. We can determine if they're lost or stolen, as well as people. It gives us the return on their SOS address, things of that nature.
What were the results of that search?
It provided no registered owner on file.
Do you know if it was reported stolen or not?
I can't recall specifically if it was.
Was that revolver loaded?
It was loaded at the time it was seized.
And how was it loaded?
It had 5 casings in it. One of them was a fired casing and the other 4 were live rounds.
Did you submit that revolver for any kind of lab analysis?
We did.
What analysis did you submit for?
We submitted it to our crime lab for a latent width print.
And what, if any, results did you receive from that?
They attempted to extract any sort of fingerprints off of it, but they were unable to get any.
Have you ever submitted firearms for fingerprints in the past?
Yes, I have.
How many times?
I can't tell you how many times.
And then from your experience doing that, of those times, how many times had you received results indicating that there was fingerprints on that handgun?
I have to object to that. I'm not sure why that's relevant.
Major Ryan?
Yeah, it's relevant because it shows that tends to show there's not likely to be any fingerprints on that gun connecting it to a defendant.
Will there be an expert testifying to that fact during this trial?
There will be.
Then he doesn't need to do so. Stand the objection.
All right. Did you submit the firearm for DNA analysis?
Our lab has a policy that they will not test firearms for DNA analysis if it's a simple possession case. So no, I did not.
Did you do any investigation into whether Arthur Woods had a license to carry a pistol?
Yes, I did.
What, if anything, did you find?
He is not legally able to carry a firearm.
So during the time you observed Mr. Woods and the other individuals before you moved in, did you see anyone around that right rear passenger tire where the gun was found?
No, I did not.
As you moved in and you observed Mr. Woods around that right rear passenger tire, was anybody else around that tire?
Only Mr. Woods.
During the entire time that you observed the SUV, did the SUV move?
It did not.
Based upon your observations of Arthur Woods and where that revolver was located, did you make any conclusions regarding how the revolver got there?
It was,
I'm going to object this on speculative.
Say that again.
This is speculative.
I sustain-
Speculation.
I sustain the objection.
Based upon the observations of that night, Detective, could that revolver belong to anyone else?
I'm going to also object that that is also speculative.
Care to respond to that, Mr. Major? Basically the same question I sustained the objection to.
That's fine, Your Honor. I'll withdraw a question.
All right.
Just 1 minute, Your Honor. I have no other questions at this time. Thank you.
Questions, Ms. Askew?
Trooper Miller, earlier you stated that there were several people around the car, correct?
yes.
How many is several?
I believe I stated approximately 4 to 5.
Okay. And at that time, when you walked up, you don't know how long those individuals were there, correct?
That is correct. I don't know.
Okay. And about how much time had elapsed between the 911 call and when you arrived?
Which 911 call?
The first one.
The first one, I believe, was at 2:45 for the 2 individuals that were fighting. Is that the first one that you're referring to?
Yes.
And I believe we arrived at approximately 3:35 in the morning,
So that's approximately almost an hour later, correct?
approximately, yes.
Okay. And you never saw that weapon initially when you walked up, did you?
No, I did not.
In fact, another officer actually discovered that weapon.
After Mr. Woods was taken into custody, the other officer observed it on the tire.
Okay, so in the time that Mr. Woods was taken into custody, no one has seen a gun on Mr. Woods or anywhere near him.
I would say it was near him. It was within a matter of a foot.
But you
From
didn't see
his-
that.
See what?
You didn't see the weapon at the time you took him into custody.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And there was another person on scene, correct? That was standing behind the car?
Kendrell Buford, yes.
Yes. And wasn't he within distance of the exact same weapon from what you saw?
No,
He wasn't.
no.
Okay. And you don't know how long that weapon was sitting there, do you?
No.
Okay. You never saw Mr. Woods take anything out of his sweatshirt,
I saw him make a movement to that tire.
but you never saw him take anything out of his sweatshirt?
I did not.
Okay. And you never saw anything on his person? Like you didn't see any other weapons on him?
No,
Okay. And you're not sure what he did when he walked to the other side? You were on the other side of the vehicle, correct?
no, I was at the rear of the vehicle.
Okay, but you didn't see him, you were close enough, you were pretty close to him, correct?
I would say so,
And
yes.
you were, okay, you were close enough to be able to see if he had anything on him, correct?
No,
How close were you to him?
I was at the rear of the vehicle and Mr. Woods made it to the rear passenger tire of the vehicle. So at one point, I would have lost vision of him, visual contact, when I was dealing with Kendrell Buford.
Okay. And weren't there several female subjects outside as well?
I believe there were, yes.
Okay. And weren't you told that in the 911 call that there were female subjects that were fighting that night? Correct?
I think the initial call said there was a male and female arguing.
Okay. And you didn't interview anyone at the scene aside from the 4 people who were put in custody, correct?
That is correct.
In fact, you didn't even interview Kendrell Buford.
I believe, I don't know if I attempted to interview him or not.
Okay. Do you need to refresh your recollection? If I told you that the police report stated that he was placed into custody but not interviewed, would you believe that?
I would believe that.
Okay. And you didn't interview anyone else to see if there was any other weapons anywhere around you, just the people who were standing near the car?
That is correct.
Okay. And when you ran the gun and lean, it didn't show that the gun or any of the weapons were stolen, did it?
I would have to review the lien returns that are in the report to confirm that, but as far as I can recall, no, they were not stolen.
Okay. And if you would like, I do have the police report if you would like to review it, but
I'm good with what I said.
okay. 1 second, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Just one moment. And Trooper Miller, you remember testifying at the preliminary exam in this matter?
Yes,
And did you previously testify that this weapon was stolen?
I may, if I said that, it was an error. I thought it was stolen, but again, I would, based on our conversation here today, and I would, without confirming it with my report, then I would say it's not stolen.
Okay, thank you. There's no further questions.
All right, anything else, Mr. Major Ryan?
Just quickly, Aaron. Detective, as to Kendrell Buford, did you find any contraband on him?
No, he did not contain any legal contraband on his person.
And again, where was he in relation to the right rear passenger tire where the Arthur Woods revolver was found?
He was not near that side of the vehicle.
And what about Travion Buford? Where was he in relation to that right rear passenger tire?
Nowhere near it. He was at the front of the vehicle.
And Jessica Swain, where was she in relation to that right rear passenger tire?
She was seated in the driver's seat.
No question, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. Askey?
Very briefly. But you also didn't find any contraband on Arthur as well, correct?
I did not search Mr. Woods.
Okay. Are you aware what was found on him? Were you standing there when he was searched?
If I recall correctly from my report, he had no other illegal contraband on his person.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
You may step down. Calling next witness, Mr. Majorano.
Your Honor, people would call Troop Sergeant Justin Kemmer. I believe he's out in the, he's just outside, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you state and spell your name for the record?
Justin Kemmer, JustinKemmerer.
And are you employed?
Yes,
Where are you employed?
with the Michigan State Police,
How long have you been employed there?
approximately 13 years.
And what is your position there?
I'm a sergeant.
Okay. And at the time of this case, what was your position?
I was a trooper.
Were you assigned to a road patrol?
Yes,
And taking you back to July 14, 2020, you were still employed with the Michigan State Police?
yes,
You were on duty on that date?
yes, I was.
And on that date, were you on duty about 3:30 in the morning?
Yes,
And at that time and date, were you called to an area of the Birch Park apartment complex in the city of Saginaw?
yes,
And that's located in Saginaw County, state of Michigan?
yes, it is.
Would you consider that Birch Park apartment complex a high crime area?
Yes.
And why is that?
I have to object. I'm not sure why this is relevant. I'm not sure if there's a foundation made for this question. either.
Your Honor, she didn't object to it the last time I asked last witness.
I'll overrule the objection. Proceed.
You can answer the question.
In my history working in this area, I've responded to multiple calls of shootings, shots fired, people with guns, homicides, all types of violent crime.
And on this particular occasion, July 14, 2020, at about 3:30 in the morning, why were you called to the Birch Park Apartments?
There was a subject who called 911 to report multiple people, I believe a group of 7 people in the complex parking lot with guns.
Were you informed of a specific address where there was to take place?
Yes, in front of 3032 Birch Park.
And you went to the Birch Park Apartments?
Yes,
How long did it take you to arrive there after you received the call?
just a couple minutes. I was with my partner. We were relatively close to the area when the call came up.
And who was your partner?
Trooper Patrick Miller.
What did you do once you got there?
We walked into the complex on foot from outside. We parked and walked through an opening in the fence.
Why didn't you go through the main entrance of the complex?
There's only one entrance and exit for vehicle traffic, and it's very common that when police pull into the complex, any people engaged in any illegal activity or looking to avoid police contact will flee on foot, either into apartments or outside of the complex entirely. Because of this, we walked in on foot prior to any other officers responding in their vehicles.
And so you walked in on foot and did you advise other officers to hold back or what was the plan?
Yes, we told them to wait until we got into position. Again, we were given the address of where these subjects were supposed to be at, which 3032 Birch Park is on the west side of the complex. And where we parked was to the east of the complex. We had to walk basically across the entire complex on the back side of it.
And so you went to that address of 3032?
Yes, not directly to the address, but to a position where we could observe the people in front of it.
How long did it take you to walk from your car to that location?
Approximately a couple minutes.
And what did you see when you got into position?
Again, since we had to walk basically past the entire complex, there was nobody outside on the east side of the complex. When we got to the west side of the complex where 3032 was located, we observed a group of subjects standing around the vehicle.
How far away were you from these individuals you observed?
Approximately 20 feet.
And how many people did you see?
I believe there was 4 to 5 people.
Was the complex lit?
Yes,
Was it lit enough that you could see those individuals?
yes.
You described a vehicle. What kind of vehicle was it?
It was a dark colored SUV, I believe a Ford Escape.
Okay. And how was that Ford Escape parked?
It was backed into the parking spot. So it was on the north side of the parking lot, getting backed into a space. So the vehicle was facing south.
How long did you observe these individuals and that vehicle?
Approximately a minute or two.
So from your vantage point, what side of the SUV were you seeing?
The driver's side.
And these individuals, where were they standing in relation to the SUV?
Around the front driver's side and towards the rear of the vehicle.
Would that be the rear driver's side or the passenger side?
Rear driver's side.
Or is could you see the right rear passenger area of that SUV?
Yes.
Was anyone standing around that right rear passenger area?
No.
When you saw these individuals standing around the SUV, what were they doing?
Standing, talking.
And at that time, were you able to identify any of those individuals standing around the SUV?
I didn't know anybody's name at that time, no.
Did you see Arthur Wood standing there at that time?
Yes.
Where was he standing?
I believe he was standing towards the rear.
And for the entire time you observed these individuals, was Arthur Woods there?
Yes.
You were eventually able to identify Arthur Woods.
Yes.
How did you do that?
Using, well, he identified himself verbally and then I confirmed his identity using snap images.
Is Arthur Woods here in the courtroom today?
Yes, he is.
Can you identify him for the jury?
Seated at the end of the table in the gray suit.
Yes, for identification, you are.
Record should reflect identification of the defendant.
So once you saw Arthur Woods and the other individuals standing around the SUV, what did you do next?
At that point, we relayed via radio traffic to other units to then enter the complex in their vehicles.
And what happened after that?
Several Saginaw police officers arrived in their vehicles and pulled into the west side of the complex. And at that time, I believe they activated their emergency lights, making their presence known.
And what did you do at that point?
Again, I kept a visual contact and began moving towards the group of people that I observed around the vehicle, suspecting that this was in fact the group that the caller had identified as having multiple guns. It was apparent to me that based on the direction they were looking, that they all had observed the police cars pull in, and then several of them started moving in the opposite direction away from the police vehicles.
And specifically as to Arthur Woods, what did you see him do?
He started moving around the vehicle and over towards the towards the rear and towards the passenger side.
Was he doing anything as he did that?
Yes, he was, observed him reaching towards his waistband and sweatshirt pocket. And at that time, I made announcements to stop, directed at all those subjects to stop and put their hands up.
How many times did you tell them to stop?
Multiple times, I'd say at least 3 or 4 times.
Trooper, would you be able to demonstrate what you observed Arthur Woods doing?
Yes.
Your Honor, with your permission, I'd like to have Trooper Kemmer demonstrate for the jury what he observed Arthur Woods doing.
That's fine.
Go ahead and stand up, Trooper.
If the table, the table was the rear of the vehicle, then he again began moving from in this direction. I was situated over here and began walking towards him, issuing commands to stop and show me his hands. And he was making movements such as this, and then turning the body away, moving around the vehicle over towards the passenger side. He continued to turn his body away and reach his hands into his midsection area. She was wearing a that pocket. And once he got around to the passenger side of the vehicle, he then leaned up against the vehicle completely and turned his body away from me again as I was standing over here moving towards him. So at that point, as I was continuing to order him to stop, he leaned up against the vehicle and then backed away. Put his hand up.
Thank you, Trooper. You can take a seat. So Sergeant Kemmer, that area of that right rear passenger area, what was located in that part of the car? What part of the car was where he was standing?
The rear passenger side tire.
And so after that, what did you do?
I then approached him and made contact with him and asked to search his person.
Did he consent to a search of his person?
Yes.
And did you find anything?
No.
Did anything happen as you were searching Arthur Woods?
Yes, I was alerted to the fact that there was a pistol on the rear passenger tire of that vehicle.
Did you actually look and see that that pistol was there?
Yes,
What kind of pistol was it?
it was a revolver.
And do you know how that gun was sitting on that tire?
It was on the top of it.
Do you know what orientation it was facing, if anything?
No, I can't recall the way it was oriented.
Sergeant Kemmer, sitting on the table there as Exhibit 14 has already been admitted. Can you just open it and tell me what's in there?
It's a revolver.
Is that the revolver you saw that night?
Yes,
What kind of caliber revolver was it?
32 caliber.
Now, taking a slight detour from Arthur Woods and that revolver, you detain any other individuals?
Yes.
Who did you detain?
I believe there was 4 subjects. Travion Buford, Kendrell Buford, Jessica Swain.
Did you search any of those individuals?
Yes, Jessica Swain was seated in the vehicle. Eventually had her exit, searched her person. The 2 Bufords, one was searched by Trooper Miller and the other one was searched by a Saginaw police officer. But after he was searched, I seized a magazine from his pocket that I was alerted to by that police officer.
What caliber magazine was it?
40 caliber.
Did you find any other handguns that evening?
Yes.
What other handguns did you find?
There was a 40 caliber semi-automatic pistol in the vehicle on the driver's seat where Jessica Swain had been seated.
How is the 40 caliber handgun and the magazine different from the 32 caliber revolver?
40 caliber is a bigger caliber, and it's a semi-automatic, so it's the ammunition is fed from a magazine, and then when one round gets ejected, another one is loaded in to the chamber, as opposed to a revolver. It spins with a cylinder where the ammunition is loaded.
Is there any way that 40 caliber magazine found on Travion Buford could have been used with the 30 caliber revolver found by Arthur Woods?
No.
Why is that?
Again, the calibers don't fit. The rounds wouldn't actually, the 40 caliber rounds wouldn't go into that revolver. A magazine cannot be inserted into a revolver.
Do you recall whether or not that magazine was loaded?
Yes, yes, it was loaded.
Would the 40 caliber ammunition in that magazine be compatible with the 32 caliber revolver?
No.
Why is that?
Again, they're different sizes. They wouldn't fit.
Turning back to Arthur Woods, you secured that revolver?
Yes.
Was the revolver loaded?
Yes.
How many rounds were in it?
It had 4 live rounds and 1 spent casing.
One spent casing, what does that mean?
That bullet has been fired.
Do you know whether or not the revolver was submitted for lab analysis?
It was.
Do you know the results?
As far as the latent prints,
Yes.
there were no latent prints of comparison value developed from the gun.
Do you know whether the gun was submitted for DNA analysis?
It was not.
Why is that?
The Michigan State Police Crime Labs will not test guns for DNA in these types of incidents.
Did you advise Mr. Woods of his Miranda rights?
Yes.
What, did he waive those rights?
Yes, he did.
What, if anything, did he say?
He denied having possessed the gun.
Did he give any explanation for why he was out there that night?
No, I don't believe he did.
Did you ask him why he was out there?
I can't recall if I did.
Other than denying possession of the gun, did he say anything else?
Nothing of note.
So during the time you observed Mr. Woods and those other individuals before you moved in, was anyone standing around that right rear passenger tire?
No.
As you moved in and you observed Mr. Woods move around the SUV, was anyone around that tire, right rear tire?
As I moved in, he was.
Was there anybody else?
No.
And during the entire time you observed the SUV, did you see it move?
No.
Where was Kendrell Buford in relation to that right rear passenger tire?
He was not within reaching distance of it.
What about Travion Buford
The same.
and Jessica Swain?
She was seated in the car until I advised her to exit.
Just 1 minute here. No questions, Your Honor.
Questions, Ms. Askew?
Trooper Kimmerer, you're familiar with the east side of Saginaw, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you do get a lot of calls to Birch Park, so you're pretty familiar with it.
Yes.
And that's how you knew to go in on foot.
Yes,
Okay, and when you came in on foot, did you come around back or through a gate, or how did you do that?
there's an opening in the fence that encircles the property. It's on the east side of the complex.
Okay, and did you go in, you came in through an opening, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And so when you walked up and you walked to you were coming towards the driver's side of the vehicle, correct? Is that the angle in which you came?
yes, that would have been the way the vehicle was parked. The driver's side was the side closest to us when we first approached.
Okay, and were there approximately 6 or 7 people standing there when you walked up?
I believe it was either 4 or 5.
Okay, and did you see some females standing there as well when you walked up?
Yes,
Okay, and where were they standing?
in the same as I had described, basically around the driver's side, front and rear.
Okay, and that night when you came, you were responding based on a call for unknown subjects, correct?
Subjects with guns, yes.
Okay, but you didn't know who they were when you arrived?
No, we hadn't identified anybody.
Okay, you just had the general description of 4 females and 3 males or something of that lines?
Yes, in front of the specific address.
Okay. And you never saw Mr. Woods take a weapon off of this person, did you?
No.
About how far away were you from him?
Initially, again, starting off approximately 20 feet or so, and then up until I made physical contact with him.
Okay, and and earlier you testified that Arthur was leaning up against the car, but you never wrote that in your police report, did you?
I don't believe, I may have, I don't have my report in front of me too.
Okay, and that would be something pretty important, wouldn't it be, for your police report?
The report documents the incident and the investigation as my partner and I see it.
So is that a yes or a no?
To say that every specific detail that occurs is in the report would not be accurate, but
I asked if it was important. That would be an important fact.
yes,
Okay. And you didn't recover any weapon actually off of Arthur, correct?
correct,
No bullets,
correct.
no shell casings or anything of that sort?
No,
At any time, did you do a buccal swab of Arthur?
no.
Okay. So how would you have gotten DNA to run DNA? Were you going, was it your intention to do a DNA test to see if it matched the gun?
No, again, the Michigan State Police Crime Labs will not test for DNA in these incidents.
Okay. And you said that you saw Arthur turn away and lean against the car, but you were on the other side of the car, weren't you?
I was moving while this was going on.
Okay, and were you talking to Jessica Swain at that time? Because you also detained her, correct?
I did. I was not speaking to her at that time. I was speaking to the subjects that were moving away from the police officer. Jessica was seated in the vehicle. She was not moving.
Okay. And Kendrell, he was actually right behind the car. Wasn't he detained there?
He was detained there, yes.
Okay, and he was within reaching distance of that weapon, so he was right behind the car.
He was not within reaching distance.
He was detained right behind that car, but he wasn't within reaching distance of the weapon?
Again, because he was detained on more towards the driver's side of the vehicle, and the gun was on the rear passenger side tire.
Okay. Did you have any body cam? Do state troopers wear body cams?
No, we don't.
Okay. And when you were there to interview people as well? You were there to investigate, correct?
Yes.
At any time, did you interview anyone aside for the 4 people that were standing there?
I don't believe there's anybody else outside at that time, other than the people that we detained or that were in that group.
Okay, and if I played a video and showed you that there were more people out there, would you believe it then?
Again, I was said there was no people when we first made contact. When the police arrive into any area, but specifically into Birch Park, a lot more people show up. And as I recall, people showed up in vehicles, people came out of other apartments. So I would guess there was a lot more people that ended up coming up.
Okay, and about how much time had elapsed between the first 911 call and your time arriving to Birch Park?
No, again, just a few minutes.
So the first 911, you responded within a few minutes of the first 911 call?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, did you and Trooper Miller get there around the same time?
We were in the same vehicle.
Okay, and he testified earlier that he came about an hour after the first time, so were you there about an hour, within an hour afterwards?
Don't believe it was that. Again, the call came out and we were in the general near vicinity.
Okay, and did you, you did ask Arthur a few questions, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and did you focus in on Arthur because he's a felon?
again, wasn't focused in. There was a gun right where he had moved up against the car. Given his movements and everything, I had no doubt in my mind that he had put the gun there. So at that point, he was at least carrying a concealed weapon. Then yes, his criminal history was checked. He was a convicted felon. So he also can't possess a gun.
But at the time you walked up, you didn't know that, did you?
No, because I didn't even know who he was.
Okay, and you don't know if that weapon had been placed there beforehand, do you?
No,
You don't, okay. And you handcuffed, or another officer, Kendra Buford, was it you or another officer who detained him?
another officer.
Okay, and you did no testing of him? No
No.
DNA testing or fingerprint, okay. And you did not interview him to see if he had seen anything either, did you?
Somebody interviewed him. I don't believe I did.
Okay. One minute. Just briefly, I'm gonna play the dash cam from that night.
All right. Any objection, Mr. Majoron?
No, you are.
All right. And that is exhibit,
This is exhibit 13.
and have we admitted that by stipulation?
Yes, we have
All right,
at the beginning. Is that still correct, Mr. Major?
It is, Your Honor.
all right. How long is this?
It'll be approximately 3 minutes.
Okay.
I already know we should be where we're starting. Just for the record, is that you, Sergeant Kimmer?
Yes, I believe.
Okay.
The right to remain silent, anything you say can will be used against you in court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have a present with you or during any question. One lawyer is not afford one will be appointed representative of public expense. You waive the right to remain silent, they will stop answering questions. The lawyer will stop. Waive the right to have a present.
Hang on, stay back, stay back. Stay, hey, go back. When we're done, you can get them. Just go back on the sidewalk, okay?
Waive the right to have a lawyer present.
Ma'am?
Change your mind, the question is stop you to talk to the lawyer. Understanding, try to understand. They will give up his right to answer questions. Put that gun in the back. Watch him walk right over there. I didn't know. You guys try to go. Right over there. I was me and homegirl right there on the ground. He was gonna pull off. But if we came walking out and told you guys not to move, get a move. Sir, I swear to God, that move. Sir, when y'all see me dog, they got walk right past y'all. Y'all can't. Y'all think we walk down. No, it's not. Huh? Yes. Hey. You know what that means? What? You're a felon in possession of a firearm.
That's you in the video?
Yes,
And is that Arthur standing there that you're speaking with? Well, sitting on the police car?
yes.
Okay. And at that time, were people speaking to you?
As you could see, well, at least here, I guess, somebody was trying to approach,
Okay.
that we had to tell to get back. That's
So
typical.
okay. So at some time, someone told you that Arthur had just walked up, correct? Is that what on the video?
I didn't hear that.
Okay. You asked Arthur, would they find his DNA and his prints on the gun, correct? And he said no, correct?
Correct.
And sure enough, that wasn't found on the weapon, correct?
His prints were not found on the gun.
Okay.
Correct.
I don't have any further questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Major Ryan?
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can I ask to admit defendants exhibit 13?
I believe it's been admitted.
Okay, I just want to make sure for the record. Thank you.
All right.
So Sergeant Kemmer, when were you first advised of a call at the Birch Park Apartments?
Again, I believe it was just a few minutes before we showed up.
So if there had been other calls from that location that night, do you have any knowledge of that?
No,
You went as soon as you received that call.
yes.
Now, when you were interviewing Arthur Woods, as we just saw in the video, did you place him under oath?
Under oath?
Did he swear to tell the truth or not the truth to you?
Oh, no,
So it's possible he was lying.
yes,
In your experience, have people you interviewed lied to you before?
yes.
Objection. I'm not sure why this is relevant.
Overrule the objection.
You can answer, Cooper.
Yes.
So Sergeant Kemmer, earlier you demonstrated what you saw Arthur Woods do. Would it be easy for someone to dispose of a gun in that situation?
Objection. That's speculative.
Sustain the objection.
I can move on, Your Honor. 1 minute, Your Honor. So what was Arthur Woods wearing that night?
Blue hooded sweatshirt and with jeans.
Okay. And was it were they baggy? Were they tight?
I'm not sure why that's relevant.
Your Honor, it's relevant because it could tend to show that he had the ability to conceal that pistol.
Overrule the objection.
Yes, as you could see in the video, the sweatshirt was back.
And so based upon what Arthur Woods was wearing, did Arthur Woods have the ability to conceal that pistol that's sitting in front of you?
Yes.
No question, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. Askey?
But you also are aware that anyone could have put that pistol there, correct? You don't know how it got there. You didn't see anyone put a pistol there.
I'm objecting to speculation, Your Honor.
Oh, now you want to object to speculative questions? Overrule the objection.
There's no doubt in my mind that Arthur Woods put it there.
That's not what I asked.
Could you repeat your question?
I asked if you're aware that that gun could have been there somewhere else. You didn't actually see this Arthur put any weapon there.
I didn't see it in his hand, no.
Okay. No further questions.
You may step down. Trooper. We're gonna take a short break at this time, ladies and gentlemen, if you go back to please.